Hi everyone, and welcome to my review of Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. So the first part of the video will be a brief non-spoiler overview for if you're wondering about checking it out but haven't watched it yet, some stuff that I liked and stuff that I thought could be improved, and then we'll get into spoilers in the second half with what happens in each episode. So what Infinite Darkness is a Netflix CGI series with 4 episodes, so it's not very long, and the runtime for each episode is about 25 minutes, so you can finish the whole thing in only a couple of hours. It's pretty similar to the 3 CGI movies that are out already, but cut up into 4 episodes and on Netflix, and they're all out now, so you can just binge watch them all. You don't have to wait a week between episodes or anything like that, which is good. The 2 main characters in it are Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield, so 2 familiar characters that we all like. So on a side note, one thing about the show that I thought I'd clear up quickly is that one concern I've seen that some people have comes from news from a few days ago that one of the requirements for critics from mainstream outlets was that in their reviews that they weren't allowed to bring up politics or compare them from this show to real world ones. And I know this might have sounded like a red flag that this series might contain some kind of narrative, especially with Netflix's track record as of late, but having watched the whole thing myself, I can confirm that there's none of that crap in it, pretty much whatsoever that I could see. I actually think this might have been a measure to prevent morons like Kotaku and other publications like that from trying to join dots together that aren't even there in the first place and saying stuff like, oh, this and that is a reflection of this thing in real life or whatever, like they love to do so much, rather than reviewing the actual product itself and then that putting people off from watching it. So if you'd heard that and it was a concern of yours, then you don't have to worry about that sort of thing souring the show for you. So I just thought I'd clear the air and get that bit out of the way first. So with that little tangent out of the way, we can get into the fun bit. So I'll start with some overall stuff that I enjoyed about the show. One of the first things I thought was that the CGI was really good. Everything's pretty detailed and looks good overall, like the characters and their movements all looking pretty natural and well done. So it is a good looking show. If you've seen the later CGI movies, it will look pretty familiar. I actually do like those movies despite them being a bit more on the actiony side rather than scary, and this series is pretty much the same, so that's something to note if you weren't too keen on the direction of those films. I do like how it's about Leon and Claire and it's set in 2006, so that time around Resident Evil 4 Revelations, that kind of time, which I do like as I'm not really that much of a fan of the newer stuff like Resident Evil 7 and 8, and I'm glad it's not about Ethan or anything because I just find him to be just a really faceless and boring character. Like, literally, I'm pretty sure you don't even see his face. I'm not sure what that's all about, so that's good in my opinion. It does have some cool action too, like the scenes where they're fighting BOWs and zombies. So that's what I liked about it, and some of the stuff I thought that could have been improved a bit are that speaking of the characters, it does have Leon and Claire, but it's probably like about 75% Leon and only 25% Claire, and they aren't seen together very much, only a little bit at the start, and then they meet again towards the end in like the last episode. I would have liked to see them together a bit more and for Claire to have been in it a bit more as well. Hopefully they'll do that if they make a season 2. I do wish we could have had some more characters, like Chris, Jill or Barry or someone, as the CGI stuff is always about Leon, though the latest movie did have Chris and Rebecca, which was cool. Hopefully they might show up in a later season. Also, the setting and locations, as they were good, but there wasn't many spooky places, just a couple scenes are like that. I'd have liked to have seen more locations like in that house Claire goes into in the trailer, but it's mostly open and lit spaces with action, and the rest is just people talking in normal rooms and stuff. I wish there was more than only 4 episodes, as overall if you want to watch it in one go, like I did, it's basically just like another movie. So on the whole, I did enjoy the show. I thought it was pretty good. I'd probably give it like a 7.5 out of 10. Pretty much as good as the CGI films, so I was happy with it and enjoyed watching it. And I'll definitely watch more seasons if they make them. I would recommend giving it a watch if you already have Netflix, or if you just want to get it for 1 month just for this, if you're a Resident Evil fan. So that's the non-spoiler part of the review done, and now I'm going to get into the spoilers and what happens in each episode. So the intro of episode 1 opens in the year 2000 in a war in a kind of Asian, Middle Eastern fictional country called Penamstan, with some helicopters carrying soldiers, and one of them goes down and another one disobeys orders and lands to help, but they get an RPG shot of them and then the camera cuts. We then see where the terrorists the soldiers were fighting have killed and strung up the soldiers who were in the downed helicopter, and one of them opens his eyes and we see he's a zombie. Then it cuts to present day Panamstan in 2006, which is when this series is set. And we see Claire talking to a young boy who looks like he's been traumatised from the events of the war, and he shares a drawing of what he'd seen with Claire, and she's shocked to see that his drawing seems to feature zombies and reminds Claire of Raccoon City, and she suspects that bioweapons could have been used in the war, and she sets out to investigate. We see that Leon is on his way to the White House, and in the White House the president is there with some other people and some special service agents, and then the power goes out and there's a zombie outbreak. I noticed the zombies are pretty quick in this series, faster than they normally are, but Leon arrives and they manage to take care of the zombies and the president is alright. The president is the same guy whose daughter is Ashley, who Leon saves in Resident Evil 4. And then Claire is there asking questions and sees Leon. Then Leon and the other agents go into a submarine to go to China because the Defense Secretary Wilson, who's the bad guy, convinces the president that China was hacking and sabotaging stuff. Then we flash back again to the war and the soldiers turn into zombies and kill the terrorists. So it looks like that's why they told the other helicopter not to land and save them, because those soldiers were infected and I think were being used as a bioweapon against the terrorists. So then in episode 2, Leon is in the sub talking to another agent named Jason. They discuss the 2000 war, which Jason was at, and Raccoon City, which Leon was at. Then they notice something's up and go to check with the submarine's crew, but they've been killed by something. They then split up and Jason and female agent Shen Mei kill the rest of the crew. Then a zombie rat BOW bursts out a corpse and attacks Leon, but he squashes it with a fire extinguisher. I thought their CGI looked really good and gruesome where the rat was squished. Then the sub self-destructs and they are now in China at a safe house where they have guns and supplies. Then Jason says the US government covered something up and wants Leon to help expose it, but he refuses to help. Then the guy goes to shoot Leon, but he shoots him instead and the girl gets away. So episode 3 starts with Claire at night going into a spooky looking house. Again, it has the impressive CGI, like where she shines the torch around and you see the dust floating about and stuff. It just looks really good. It's the area from the trailer, and she steps on a needle and sees a guy who's blown his own head off. This scene looked really good, and I do wish the whole show was in places like this. Like if Claire and Leon were stranded there or something and had to escape, or were looking for something, so they had a motivation to be in a creepy location. Then back in China with Leon, we are in Shen Mei's house and we find out her brother was a US soldier, but him and his unit were the soldiers in the downed helicopter, and they had been infected with a bioweapon virus and used inhibitors to stop becoming zombies, because the army guy in charge at the time was Wilson, who is now that secretary advisor guy to the president, and he was developing bioweapons with an unknown pharmaceutical company, and that's why Shen Mei is working with Jason to expose the cover-up. And they have taken a chip out of her brother which records combat data for evidence, but then the house burns down and her granddad and brother die, but her and Leon escape. Then we're back to Claire and she's reported the dead guy to the police. Then she's in a motel and some guys break in and incapacitate her. And in the last episode, Claire wakes up tied to a chair, and it is Secretary Wilson who had her kidnapped, and says he basically manipulated the president into thinking it was China who were responsible, and he wants to go to war with them so he can test bioweapons and make money off them. I think this might have been one of the things they didn't want the review outlets making real world comparisons to. But in the actual show, it's not making America out to be the bad guys, it's just the one character, Secretary Wilson, who's the baddie, and who's trying to manipulate the president and steer the US into war with China. Also, he can make demand for the inhibitors for the virus and make money off it. But then Jason comes back and turns into a BOW because he hasn't taken his inhibitor and bites Wilson, but he gets up and flees. Then the guy who mutated Jason, he looks kinda like a tyrant with his heart showing, but he still has his human consciousness still and can talk. He wants to tell the world about the use of bioweapons and how Wilson covered it up by revealing himself and making it public, scaring everyone into not liking bioweapons. But Leon and Shen Mei want to show the chip from her brother and make that public so they don't scare the public or something, I think. Then to try and stop Jason, Leon shoots him, but it doesn't do anything. I thought that was a bit of an escalation, like why? He wasn't trying to hurt them, he just wanted what they wanted, but by different means. But then he kills Shen Mei, so I guess he does want to kill them now. Then another agent with the president tells him he's heard from Leon and that Secretary Wilson is trying to provoke China and start a war, and the president believes him, so he doesn't give his speech condemning China, but instead makes a different one about helping Penamstan instead. Then Leon's trying to stop Jason, but Jason grabs him and could have killed him, but doesn't for some reason. I found this a bit confusing, because he wasn't going to kill them at first, then he killed Shen Mei, but then doesn't kill Leon when he has the chance. Maybe I missed something here, I'm not sure. Then Leon drops the platform they're on and drops Jason into the acid and kills him, because the system detected Jason as a BOW and filled the lower level with acid to dispose of the BOWs in. And we're at the end, and now Leon is now outside talking to another agent, the one who told the president that Wilson was the bad guy, and we see the president nods to Leon and gets in Air Force One and it takes off and flies away. Then it cuts to Wilson, who's still alive. He's at a table with a mysterious man and injects himself with an antidote. And then the camera pans up and we see on the case from the antidote, it has the Tricell logo on it. So it looks like it's setting them up to be the baddies. I wonder if we'll get some crossover with Resident Evil 5 then. That'd be cool. Maybe we'll even see Excella or even Wesker. That'd be good to see. So then in the final scene, we see Leon and Claire talking, and Claire wants the chip from Leon to show the news and make it public that there were bioweapons being used in Panamstan during the Civil War there 6 years ago. But Leon decides not to give it to her. I think he remembered the words Jason told him earlier about trying to terrify the world into not liking bioweapons, and Leon wants to not create a panic, I think. So I think he just wants to fight it as it comes up and not make it a big deal. And that's where episode 4 ends. So, like I said earlier, I did enjoy this series and thought the story and CGI were pretty good, and I would recommend watching it, especially if you like the CGI films, as it's kinda like them. So thanks for watching my review of the Resident Evil Infinite Darkness Netflix series. Make sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel, where I make a lot of other Resident Evil stuff like reviews, playthroughs and lore videos. And I'll see you in the next video.